Welcome back to the channel. It's windy and the weather is not cooperating with us, and it's pretty loud out here with the loud road over there, so I apologize. I was just out here kind of digging in these wood chips, a little bit of steam rolling off of them, probably 80-90 degrees or so, and that is not super crazy hot, but it's literally only 18-19 degrees outside, and it's windy, so the wind chill factor is probably much worse than that. We've had pretty wicked temperatures since those guys have dumped these wood chips. I mean, they came when it was pretty darn cold, maybe 5 degrees outside. We've had a good run of really cold weather for a solid stretch, so kind of dealing with that. We're coming on the upside of that. We had a 30-degree and sunny day and it melted all the snow, but this little patch over here, so we're doing pretty good. It's darn chilly outside. Let's see what we're sitting in the greenhouse. About 51, maybe 52 degrees on a good day. So that's really all just Jean Pain heating. Our compost heating down at the other end is holding that nice temperature right next to our door. We've got 51, 52 degrees, and we're able to keep growing plants. We're able to keep food, and we've got a lot of stuff coming out of dormancy. I had all these strawberries I had pulled up here, and then what I wanted to check out was all these elderberries. Those elderberries are coming to life on me here. We've got a lot of elderberries we can take cuttings from, and these were leftovers from last year, and I thought I would just put them in the greenhouse and see what happened, kind of let them stay dormant, but the leaves just now had fallen off once they started to throw new growth, so they weren't really in a full dormant state. And then we've got all of these Egyptian walking onions. This is a great seller for us, so we're kind of just allocating a few things down on this end, the easier to take care of stuff, basically everything that can go outside as soon as physically possible. So moving on over here, I've got all these little kale. All those are potted up, and that was just a quick little pot up, 2 little trays there. We've got lots of life coming up in the greenhouse, and this is where I had taken those kale from, basically this bare spot right here. So you can see that they are getting a little yellow on me, so I'm still trying to just kind of piece it together and pot those up and get a head start on the actual market here. So we've been holding great temperatures to keep all of this alive. This bed is actually starting to show a lot more life. I've been transplanting a few things here and there, but all of those seeds I had sown are actually coming to life and popping up through there. Just trying to fill every space over here right now with seeds, trying to get a head start, because a lot of these plants can be plucked out and repotted. All of this perpetual shard spinach here, just little clusters of it coming up there, so I'll be able to pull that up and I can repot that. And I've been trying to clean out my beds as much as possible. Here's another plant. As soon as we got really warm temperatures overnight, basically just started seeing these flowering. Pretty wild. Purple Tatsoi flower. Tastes like broccoli. That's pretty good. So we're coming down to the actual stove side, north side of the greenhouse. I gotta shed a few layers. It is decently warm in here compared to outside, that is for sure. So I don't always do things in the right order. So just like getting my stove in order, I was so excited to hook this stove up. I went and got the exhaust, did all that. Forgot to put a flue in because it did not have a flue that came with the actual stove. So having to backtrack all of that work, and I've taken these bricks down a few times when I put the copper coil on, and I made more work out of that than I needed to also. So having to backtrack this build was basically a learning experience for me, and it was not the best for me because I had a lot of failure on the way to success with this, but it's great for everybody watching this because you can learn from my mistakes here. So basically what I'm doing over here in this corner, this copper coil, I'm not going to touch this until I take this off, clean up the end, and then I'm actually going to bend that around some 6-inch PVC. I think I'll be able to get the best result stacking it on here and being able to pull the best heat I can. And going from this 600 gallon per hour pump to a 300 gallon per hour pump here, this is about the same size actually, but it says it flows half of the volume, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to slow the volume. And I had another catastrophe today. I came out and my Jean Pain heating is not running. My actual pump has some malfunctions with it. I'm gonna have to do some diagnostics on that system. I'm gonna get that running because that is very crucial to keeping the heat. All of that heat running through that blue PEX on the floor certainly helped all these plants stay alive. So I'm not 100% sure if my Jean Pain pump is actually broken or not. I believe it is the same pump I have right here. So it was about $20. I'll be able to replace it with this operating pump, and then that will be good to go. I just got to swap them over. But the next thing is this 350 gallon per hour. Get this in my water here. So this 350 gallon per hour pump, I want to kind of test these. I want to shoot this one off and see how much distance it gets, basically. And then I'm going to shoot this one off in typical guy fashion and just test them out. So before I test these and see how much force they have and how much water they're going to shoot across this greenhouse, I wanted to give a short story here. When the tree trimmers came the other day, they dropped off those wood chips, and long story short, they were asking me what I'm doing with all the wood chips. So I kind of explained my situation where I have a wood burning stove that was made for coal. It's easy to shovel wood chips in there. I mean, fresh cut wood chips that they just dropped are not going to cut it. It's just going to have a lot of accumulation in the chimney stack there, and I don't want to use anything that's wet. So that's why I'm going through the process of drying all the wood chips before I burn them. So I'm trying to make this story short. We were out there talking about the wood chips, and they wanted to come see inside the greenhouse because they looked over at the huge pile that I pointed to when they asked what I was doing with them. So we all made our way into the greenhouse here and basically kind of lifted up every bed and showed them all of the plants, and they were pretty astounded that I had food growing when there was 6 to 8 inches of snow outside, not a bit of greenery. So that was pretty cool to be able to show that off to somebody that was very interested in it and had a hand in creating the system that I was running. So after we made our way through the greenhouse, about half an hour later, we made our way down to this end where we have all of our electronics and all of our solar power and our Jean Pain heating operating. So they got to see firsthand how I was using all of those free wood chips to create about 25,000 BTUs per hour for the duration of this burn on our actual compost pile. And that was their next question, was how much heat can you get off of this? So I broke it down for them. I was like, I got a whole YouTube channel dedicated to this. Go check it out. So hopefully they are subscribed now. I found it very cool that those guys found an interest in this and were very interested in seeing inside the greenhouse and what I had going on. So the moral of that story is that I made a great acquaintance, and he got to see what I'm doing with this, and we got it set up where I can have twice the size of pile for next year. So next winter I'll be going into the winter with a pile that should be able to produce between 40 and 50,000 BTUs per hour. So enough talk about wood chips here. Let's get this pump in action. I'm going to set the camera up and see what kind of distance we can get. All right, test number 1, 600 gallons per hour. Oh boy. That was a good distance there. It's quite a bit further than I actually thought it was going to shoot that. So we didn't get our pots, thankfully. Didn't plan that one out very well. So we've got at least a good 15 feet of distance or so. So the distance doesn't really matter how far I'm shooting the water here, but I am going to swap over to this little 350 gallon per hour pump, and we're going to do the same test so I can see how much water and how forcefully it's going to flow it out of the same exact tube. All right, here goes the 300 gallons per hour. All right. That's actually what I wanted to see. So that is a major difference between the 300 and 600. It literally launched it further than double the distance. So the amount of water we're flowing really makes a difference. We were overflowing our actual stove heater because we were getting a hot burst of heat and then it was coming down. So I want to control that a lot better. I'm going to do that with the smaller pump and a little bit more refined system, and I want to be able to have it flow back into my tank so I don't have any sitting water, obviously, so we don't have another catastrophe like we did when we had water flowing all through our stove and through the whole floor of the greenhouse. It was not fun. One last thing I wanted to share, we've got cherry tomatoes sprouting here. I just kind of had this cardboard box. You can see them leaning. That is pretty wild. They're really reaching for the sun. The sun's not really strong enough for them yet, but we're getting there. So I wanted to try and get those in a nice tunnel somewhere here, but I don't have a whole lot of tunnel space. So I'm basically going to clear my tatsoi and all of this out so I can dedicate this little spot to having some tomatoes under cover, because having those out in the open, everything else is pretty cold hardy. I've got all these Georgia collards, red mustard, blue kale, red vein sorrel, cabbage, lovage. So tomatoes I was just basically an experiment. I just wanted to throw those out here. I've been planting a ton of our actual transplants out, just plugging them through all the beds and kind of pulling plants out at the same time, like from our kale, to repot them up basically and make a little money off them. So we're basically turning this greenhouse into a money factory now that winter's kind of on the downslope. So we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here, just trying to keep ourselves occupied and prepare the best way we can. I'm going to need a lot more space. So that's one major point I'd like to note to everybody. I'll sit down next to my mustard or rapini broccoli. I can't tell because I mislabeled them. I'm pretty sure it looks like mustard. They're big enough I can eat them now. Tastes like mustard. Okay. So we've got mustard over here growing, doing very well actually. I always love having mystery plants in the greenhouse, but that's one thing I want to talk to everybody about. When you're going to build a greenhouse, build it bigger. We started in a little 6x12 and totally crammed it out every year for farmers market. You can lose a ton of money in just one night, just with one cold night. Trust me, I know. We've had lots of experience with this, and even in this 520 square foot greenhouse, I am finding that I'm running out of space. Everything is planted up, taken up, and there's not a whole lot of room left in here. And I want to build myself a nice pond, kind of over where I have all my plants right now. I want to put a nice little pond, some aquaponics stuff in there, so I can try and keep that alive through the winter also, if insulated very well. So before this gets too long here, I'm going to let everybody go. I'm going to do some work to all of my water systems, kind of get everything situated for when I burn the fire next, because we do have some cold temperatures coming. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video, and thank you to all my subscribers. You guys are awesome.